Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for attending our virtual showcase and today's first webinar. I want to remind everybody that we actually have 4 webinars, this one included, going on today. Michelle, who will be presenting this first one on our critical environments sensing solutions, will also be doing one a little bit later today in the afternoon on our COVID response. That's one you definitely don't want to miss. I also recommend signing up for our SEMS webinar at 11 a.m. Eastern. That one will sort of follow from Michelle's critical environments presentation today. So again, welcome. We will be taking questions during this live event, so feel free to use the questions tab that you see on your control bar. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, but if you just have a burning question, feel free to reach out. My name is Michael Joseph. Sorry, I haven't introduced myself, and I'm the marketing manager at Cetra. And with that, I'll hand it over to Michelle. Michelle is our critical environments product manager. She manages most of our room pressure monitor and other critical environment sensing lines of products. She has become a true expert in these sensors, and definitely also in terms of our COVID response. So I'm real excited for her to share these innovations with you and show you a little bit about what we're doing, etc. So with that, Michelle, if you want to take over, we can go ahead and get started.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We're excited to be able to have you all join us so that we can share more about our solutions and hear from you on any questions or anything that you might need that we can help you with. So like Mike said, I'm the product manager for our critical environment solutions on the sensing side of things. That's what I'm going to be talking to you about this morning. I'll start out sharing just a quick introduction to how we view the critical environments market in general, and then we'll jump into the products themselves and how you would think about them if you're looking to create a solution for your application. And then I will make sure to leave some time for questions at the end. So please feel free to use the questions tab to enter anything that you would like to hear more about. Okay, so critical environments across the healthcare and life science space fall into a few different categories. Healthcare in hospitals is a very common one that we work with and help provide solutions for. Compounding pharmacies, as well as pharmaceutical manufacturing, various different types of laboratories, vivariums, which is the animal-oriented aspect of lab work, and life sciences. So various different life science manufacturing that occurs oftentimes in clean rooms. Those are some of the examples of critical environments. I'll share a little bit more details there as well on the next slide, but the big picture theme that really connects all of these applications across critical environments is that the airflow, the pressure, the temperature, humidity, particle count in the air, all of these aspects of the air and the environment are critical across these applications. Whether it's from a safety perspective, a process effectiveness perspective, these are high consequence applications where you want to make sure that all of those parameters that I just mentioned are going to be controlled to your requirements and work as you expect them to. There's also regulations and codes that tie to the environmental parameters across many of these applications, just increasing the criticality there of having a good handle on sensing those parameters. And then, of course, because of how important these aspects are to the success and the safety across these markets, there's a very high value placed on reliability, accuracy, and quality. And that's where Cetra comes into play, because we are able to help out with providing solutions that are rooted in a long history of that reliability, accuracy, and quality. Okay, So here's a deeper dive into those spaces that we mentioned. I've also added a section for COVID-19 response use cases that we've seen pop up over the last several months due to COVID-19. And so don't want to leave that out because it's been an important part of our product development and product innovations over the last several months. One aspect that I will actually be presenting on a bit more later today. But when we think about critical environments, we have the traditional areas and then we have the expanded areas due to COVID-19 that I've listed here. So in the traditional areas, on the healthcare side, isolation rooms are a critical environment, operating rooms, compounding pharmacies, surgery centers, all of those applications are ones where the environment and the airflow in that space are critically important. When you think about compounding pharmacies, you may be coming across things like USP 797 or USP 800 regulations that are dictating the cleanliness level and the clean room classification in those compounding pharmacies. On the laboratory side, there are fume hoods that are used with pressurization to ensure that the laboratories are as safe as possible. There's also biosafety level classification that for the most extreme examples of critical environments. In vivariums, which are animal holding areas, they obviously, need to be considering the contamination in spaces, how to react to that, and how the airflow both enables a comfortable and safe environment for the animals and also enables a clean and most decontaminated space as possible. On the life sciences side and clean rooms, of course, there's the traditional pharmaceutical manufacturing that has a lot of regulation from the FDA and from CGMP. This is definitely a global market with a lot of different factors, but being able to ensure that the classification of your clean room is up to specification helps with product success as well as regulatory compliance. There's actually a presentation a little later today with our SEMS product manager, Katie, and she's going to talk a little bit more about clean room classification. So if you're interested, definitely recommend joining that presentation a little later today. On the COVID-19 response side, these are some examples of markets where people have actually come to us as experts in the critical environment world and have asked for help with solutions now that COVID-19 has really changed their traditional operating day-to-day world. So obviously we saw a lot of mobile field hospitals pop up with the initial pandemic response and patient room conversions. But dentists and long-term care facilities and nursing homes and even schools have reached out to us to talk through how they can create the safest possible environments amongst COVID-19. So here is an overview of the various products that we provide to help with these types of solutions across critical environments and more. We have the monitors, which I'll be going into in great detail today. We have particle counters as well, which I will cover, and humidity and temperature sensing. All of those I'll talk to you, I will talk about with you today, and would be happy to take any questions around any of those areas. So hopefully this can be a helpful review of the solutions that are out there across these different areas and how they apply to different critical environment applications. The HVAC pressure, low differential pressure solutions that Cedra has that spans across a ton of different applications are an integral part of our environmental and pressure monitoring systems. Well, I also wanted to mention a few other areas where Cedra's products are today and where you can learn more with our presentations that are coming later today. So at the top, Mike mentioned the COVID-19 innovations. I also mentioned some of the applications where we started to get more questions. And so later today at 3 p.m., I will be coming back to talk about creation of negative pressure spaces across various different facilities. So You may know about the use of pressurization and negative pressure in traditional hospital facilities, but due to COVID-19, this need has expanded in a lot of different areas, dental, long-term care, schools, like I mentioned on the previous slide. And so I'm going to be sharing more about the solutions that we have come up with and innovated around over the last several months later today at 3 p.m. So hopefully you can join us then. This presentation is also really closely tied to our environmental monitoring software solution that our product manager, Katie, is going to be presenting on at 11 a.m. today. So I would definitely recommend joining that presentation to learn more about how all of this can come together into a really effective visualization and monitoring software solution that we have. And then lastly, energy management is an important part of Sceptra's portfolio as well. So if you're interested in that area, our other product manager, Tom, will be presenting at 1 p.m. today. So I'm going to start out by jumping into the environmental monitors. We'll go into a lot of details on those solutions and then go to the particle counting and temperature and humidity solutions before taking questions. So Sceptra's line of room and environmental monitors has developed over the years. You may be familiar with the SRPM, which was actually the first room monitor that Sceptra came out with a few years ago, or several years ago. This is still a super popular product that's out there today. It's still very effective at monitoring the pressure of a single room, providing you with both a visual, like you can see here with normal and alarm, and an audible indication inside and outside of the room on the status of your space. It can also send a communication signal out over analog or BACnet. So still some great flexibility there with the SRPM for a lot of different pressurized spaces. The SRCM then added more features and was our second generation room monitor. You could monitor not only pressure, but also 3 additional parameters like temperature or humidity or airflow, and visualize that on the screen of the SRCM. You could also bring in signals from more than one room. So now you have the capability to show 2 rooms on one monitor. And again, that same communication ability to send signals over BACnet or analog to any other area where you may need to have that information going. And then a couple years ago, we came out with our most advanced and extensive room monitor solution. It's a full environment monitor with control option, and that's the Sceptra Flex. You can visualize 3 rooms and 6 parameters per room, so that's 18 parameters total can be shown on the Sceptra Flex. You have BACnet MSTP, BACnet IP capabilities, and there's just really a lot that you can do. So I'm actually going to share more about the Flex and its features in the next couple of slides. And then most recently, a little over a year ago, we came out with the Sceptra Lite, which is focused in on making pressure monitoring as accessible as possible across the entire healthcare and hospital space, and has been a key part of the solutions that we've been able to provide to help with people's COVID-19 responses. The Sceptra Lite is a visual alarm. It's small, it fits in a single gang box, it's about the size of a light switch, and it allows you to have an analog output that can be sent out from monitoring your pressure. It's an extremely effective solution for a lot of spaces across hospitals. I'm also going to touch in more detail on the Sceptra Lite in the coming slides as well. But first, let's go back to the Flex. So like I said, Flex is our most advanced room environment monitor. It's a highly flexible integration platform, hence the name. And we consider it to be the hub and the localized display for all the sensor inputs that you would be bringing into the Flex if that was a solution that was right for your space. There are options around Modbus, third-party controllers, third-party devices. They don't have to be Sceptra branded devices to bring a signal into the Flex. You can bring signals in over analog or BACnet, 420 milliamp or BACnet. So there can be multiple different pressure measuring options. The high accuracy, low differential pressure sensors that we have can be ordered either built into the back of the Flex, so on board, or off-board if you want to have them installed at various different locations for ease of use and operation. So you can see here how the Flex really ties everything together. Nothing else from Setra does this in terms of having that localized hub and the ability to hold so much information there. The touchscreen is large, it's 7 inches, and you can actually, it's usable with medical gloves, and so that's a great benefit for healthcare workers to be able to click through, see the different parameters, acknowledge and work with alarms, and scan between the different rooms. So the screenshot that I'm showing you here shows the parameters of one room. You can actually switch and go to see the second room, the third room, and all those parameters across there. It's not just pressure, temperature, humidity, and airflow that can be brought into the Flex either. You have the option to use 2 or even more than 2 user-defined badges in each room. What that means is that if you have something unique that you would like to bring in here, like the status of a HEPA filter, for example, or the CO2 concentration that's measured in your space. Those are just 2 examples of a wide range of parameters that can be brought in and visualized on your user-defined badge. So lots of customization can be done here with the Flex, available to you through the touchscreen. Really simple interface. The little gear that you see in the top right corner of the Flex itself is the settings. It's password protected, so not anyone can come in and change things around, change alarm set points. You want that protection there. But once you're in there, it's all customizable from the touchscreen right here. So it's a really intuitive and straightforward user interface. The error changes per hour can be brought in either through a pre-calculated signal, or it can be calculated within the Flex. So there's a lot that can be done here. One more thing that I want to touch on around the Flex is that we have the Flex RM, or room monitor version, where you would be displaying the signals and monitoring the signals from your various different parameters. Or you can use the RC version of the Flex, or the room control version. This allows you to be able to send a control signal through a PI loop or through backnet set point override out to one of the parameters that you are working with on the Flex. So it does add some additional capability there. One more thing to think about if you're looking at solutions across your spaces, if you've used or have come across a customer where they have a hot wire monitor that has an open space above the door where they're trying to get the differential pressure there, we have gotten feedback that there's a lot of difficulties around using that. And so we have an adapter replacement kit for that, which means that you can install the Flex, cover up that opening, and snap everything into place in minutes without making any wall or wiring changes. It's extremely straightforward. I wanted to make sure to share this in case this is something that you've come across. There's a really simple and fast solution that can be implemented here to upgrade that setup to include the Setra Flex and cover up any of those holes that are in the wall. Room monitoring, of course, as you likely know, is driven both by the desire to create the safest environment possible for patients, staff, visitors to the hospital, but also underpinned by the regulations that are there from ASHRAE 170, which is the standard on pressurization across hospitals, and the Joint Commission, which comes in and inspects those spaces. The traditional spaces that people think about in terms of pressurization are the operating room, where you want to protect the person being operated on, or the airborne infection isolation room, which has been critical to COVID-19 responses, where you're using negative pressure to protect anyone outside of the space. However, there are, I think, more than 60 different spaces listed in the ASHRAE 170 standard, so it's quite a lot. Many of those spaces don't have a requirement to have continuous monitoring there, but they still have to comply with code. So if you had an auditor come in and say, I need to see your soiled linen area and prove to me that it is under negative pressure, you need to be able to do that. And so that's where the Cetra Light comes in. And so that's where I wanted to share more, spend a little time talking about the Cetra Light. It's an extremely accessible solution for many of these different spaces and allows you to expand your continuous monitoring across lots of different pressurized spaces, not just the absolute most critical ones that are required to have continuous monitoring, but those where you may be doing walk-around pressure checks or have a non-digital indication or an indication that doesn't get sent into your building automation system. So the Cetra Light was developed to help out in those situations. It's small, it's easy to install. It has a simple red-green light ring status that you can see here. It can be customized from a simple menu right at the front of the unit itself. And it allows you to increase the level of sophistication of your pressure monitoring across tons of different spaces that are required to be pressurized per standards and per safe practices. There we go. So now I'm going to switch gears to the temperature and humidity sensors that Cetra has as part of our offering for critical environments. These are high-performance temperature and humidity sensors that are key for places like pharmaceutical clean rooms, compounding pharmacies, research labs, operating rooms. They have high accuracy readings on both relative humidity and temperature. And in many of the cases, there is the ability to actually show various different parameters that can be calculated within the unit itself and then displayed on the screen. So you can see the SRH 300 in the middle there. The screen is a little bit small, but there's 3 different line items there. And so with the SRH 300, you are measuring temperature and relative humidity. But once you have those 2 parameters, you can calculate any of the parameters that I have listed here. Absolute humidity, dew point, enthalpy, all of the ones that I listed there can be calculated, and then you can select to display any of those on the large display that the SRH 300 has. So great flexibility here for anyone that's looking for something that they want to be able to customize and work with. There's a few different pros and cons to each solution, of course, whether or not your situation requires a display, what kind of communication signals you're wanting to work with, whether you're going to use a remote probe, where you're going to mount the monitor, the sensor for the temperature and humidity. So you want to think about the pros and cons and the requirements of the solution that you have, that you are trying to create. And then we have these different options available for your high accuracy, high performance temperature and humidity sensing solutions. I'm going to jump over to the particle counters now. So Cetra's line of particle counters includes the SPCs and the AQMs, both remote handheld units and benchtop or wall-mounted units that are measuring at a continuous rate. So there's lots of different options here as well. You can see, the various features, the checkboxes that are available, whether or not you need certain aspects of a particle counting solution. The biggest difference here, though, to point out if you're trying to come up with a particle counter solution is if you want to be able to measure CO2 and TVOC, the AQMs are going to be the ones that will help or that will take those readings for you. And of course, if you want to be doing handheld spot checks where you can walk around with the monitor, the SPC 8000 is key there. If you're looking for BACnet protocol, BACnet communication from the particle counter, the SPC line is able to help and provide that as well. In terms of applications where we see particle counting solutions, the most typical is pharmaceutical manufacturing and compounding pharmacies. All of these places are clean rooms that are required by the FDA to have readings of their particle counts at a regular rate. And like I said a little bit earlier, as the presentation that is on our continuous environmental monitoring software later today at 11 a.m., Katie is going to go into a lot more details on clean room classification and how to think about that and how our environmental monitoring solution can help with that. It starts with the particle counters, though, because that's the parameter that helps classify your clean room. You can either have the fixed installation or the handheld there, depending on your requirements, your ISO classification, and the level of visibility that you are looking to provide. Healthcare is an emerging application for particle counters. Operating rooms are basically just dirty clean rooms. They obviously are wanting to keep as safe of an environment as possible, but it's just not controlled or regulated in the same way as clean rooms are. Hospitals are getting a lot more attention around these areas and thinking through solutions on how to keep operating rooms and to keep the patient in the operating room as safe as possible. Having a sense of and a measurement of the airflow effectiveness of reducing particle counts in your space is something that particle counters can help with here in the healthcare application. Also, if you think about construction sites in hospitals, if you've ever been involved in any of those applications, they're messy and they're dirty, but they're oftentimes happening just down the hallway from a fully operational hospital, if it's a retrofit or an expansion. You want to be able to ensure that you're keeping the rest of the hospital clean from that contamination. Particle counters can help with that, especially spot check particle counters or particle counters that can be set up for more regular readings to alarm if there was an escape of those particles into the rest of the hospital. Pressurization also helps there as well. Indoor air quality is becoming more and more common to think about in commercial spaces too. The AQMs I mentioned measure CO2 and TVOC. Those are key aspects of indoor air quality monitoring. While there's not exact or enforced regulations around these aspects, it is something that customers are looking to be able to say, hey, I can prove to you that I have extremely clean air here and I'm measuring it with these particle counters to prove that out. So just a few different examples of where particle counters would come into play and how you would choose between them. So bringing it all back, what we spoke about today, from the monitors to the temperature and humidity sensors to the particle counters and anything else that you can measure, can be brought into the Flex through these various different options, and it really does act as a great hub and localized display for various different solutions. To take it one step further, though, beyond localized displays, that's where our SEMS continuous environmental monitoring comes into play, where you can visualize all of these parameters, access it from any web-based device, get remote alarm notifications, and just really have the best handle possible on your environment and your critical spaces. So I would highly encourage you, if any of this was of interest or relevant to you, please join Katie at 11 a.m. today to learn more about SEMS. And now, hopefully I've left a couple minutes for questions.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. Great presentation. For all those on the line, I'm dropping the registration link to the SEMS webinar. I'm also dropping in a link to our showcase page, which obviously we're having today. This will have a list of our latest innovations, as well as the 3 additional webinars we're having today if you want to sign up for those. Thanks so much for attending. We do have some time for questions, and we did have some come through. So Michelle, we can get started. The first question came in when you were talking about communication over the Flex. The question is, can the Flex be configured over TCP IP remotely via a web interface?
Great question. So the Flex can be configured via the BACnet signals that are sent into it. So BACnet over IP or MSTP, whichever one you are using. Another option with configuration of the Flex is you can actually configure one Flex and then copy that configuration onto a USB device. And then that can be used to copy that configuration to any other Flex, or it can be used as a backup in case anything, were to go wrong and you needed any, any maintenance done on the Flex. You could always, copy that configuration that you set up onto the device to be able to recopy it onto any other device out there. So yes, it is possible over BACnet to configure the device, and then you also have the option to copy the configuration onto a USB for maximum protection and flexibility.
Great. And I'd suggest anybody who does have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. If we don't have time to get to it during this presentation, we can definitely respond to it individually. I have a few more questions, and I thank everyone for their time. I know it's just past 9:30 Eastern time, so feel free to drop off. This session will be recorded, so you'll have access to that later. Michelle, does the Cetra Lite work for airborne infection isolation rooms? Follow-up question on that. How does an alarm get to the BAS?
Great question. So I did mention, how many different responses that we've been involved in through, that are related to COVID-19 solutions for people. Airborne infection isolation rooms are a key aspect to many people's response to COVID across healthcare and hospital and other facilities. The Cetra Lite allows you to get that indication of pressure in that space. So yes, it will give you the visual indication of the negative pressure in the airborne infection isolation room. It fully works for that, and it provides you that continuous monitoring. If you need that alarm signal to go to another location, like the BAS, building automation system, or to a flex that you may have down the hallway, then that output is an analog output that comes from the flex and can be sent there. Great question.
Yeah, here's another great question, and we've been seeing a lot more of this. Can you explain more about how particle counters help in hospital construction scenarios?
Sure, yes. So I brought that up briefly. I was probably going a little quickly through it to make sure we had time for questions at the end. But what can be done is in many hospital construction scenarios, there's usually a plastic barrier or something that is set up to designate the construction on one end, keep as many particles as are possible on that side, and then the rest of the operating hospital on the other end. So particle count can be taken with our SPC 8000 handheld monitor, both inside of that construction space to get the level of particles, and then outside to check the differential in particles. So you can spot check there, and then you could, which would be highly recommended, to continue to spot check at certain points of time throughout the construction project and throughout that operating day. Another option that we have that I didn't have a chance to cover here is our Cetra Lite construction kit. So if you're able to pressurize the construction side of things to be negatively pressurized, you're going to be pulling the air and keeping any contaminated particles in that construction space to add that extra protection for the other side, the operating hospital. The Cetra Lite construction kit allows you to portably carry around the Cetra Lite pressure monitor, and it just has simple tubing that goes out of the construction kit and picks up the differential pressure between the construction side and the non-construction side, and that can alarm for you there at the kit whether you lose any of that negative pressure and protection from the rest of the hospital. So a couple different solutions around construction sites for hospitals.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. We have a few more, so we'll take these. And again, I encourage anyone to put a question in the chat feature that we have, and we'll get to it individually if we don't have time to take it here. What is the accuracy of Cetra Lite?
Sure. So the Cetra Lite is a 0.5% full-scale accuracy monitor.
Can Cetra SRCM door status be configured as a HEPA filter status if it's configurable? It's actually an interesting question.
Yeah, really interesting question. That's actually something that we've been getting questions around more frequently recently. As you probably know and have come across, air quality and air purification is becoming more and more important to people as they think about airborne diseases, and then also just general air quality for their, the people that are in their spaces. The SRCM door status is not configurable to a different parameter like a HEPA filter. However, the flex door status is configurable, and the flex user-defined badges are configurable to pull in a filter status and show that on the flex screen itself. So if you're looking for that, I would highly recommend the Cetra Flex, which has that capability.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Maybe we have time for one more. Here's the question. The statement, kindly clarify the point of Cetra Flex outputs, also SRH 300 series sensors. I'm guessing the question is more around clarifying what sort of outputs those have. So again, Flex and SRH 300.
Sure. So the Cetra Flex can send a BACnet output. I didn't put the output arrows on this diagram. It was more focused on the input side of things, but the Cetra Flex can send various different outputs over BACnet. If you're using the Flex RC for control, that output would be, the control output specifically would be for a PI loop or BACnet set point override. If you're just using it for monitoring, then the BACnet output can be sent out for any of the signals. There are also the ability on the Cetra to have I believe up to 2 analog outputs that can be sent out. And then you said the SRH 300. So the 300 has both analog and digital output available to you. So you can communicate out from the SRH 300 over 4 to 20 milliamp, 0 to 10 volt, Modbus, or BACnet. Thanks for the question.
Thanks. And I think I might slip one more in here. It's door monitors. So the question is, do you sell sash door monitors? I have to assume that's, if the door's open or closed. Why don't you field that one? I know Flex can definitely work with third-party monitors, so maybe it's a good opportunity to just explain that.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. So we do not have a specific door sensor, door monitor that we sell through us, but we can recommend and consult on any of the door sensors that you may be looking at. Excuse me. It is an integral part of a Flex solution in a lot of different places. So if you're getting questions about it and you're looking to create a solution that incorporates the door sensing option, both the SRCM and the Flex have that ability to show that, but the Flex has extremely advanced capabilities around that. It can bring in any third-party signal either over a 4 to 20 milliamp or a digital input, or of course over BACnet if it was getting sent to the BAS and then over to the Flex. So lots of different configurations that are available there. There's also the ability on the Flex to show more than one door for the room by using the user-defined badges. And so if it's critical to show both the entry door and the exit door of an operating room, for example, that can be shown on the Flex itself using the user-defined badges. So not a specific one that we are providing or selling through us, but the ability to incorporate it into our solutions is there, and we'd be happy to help consult or advise on any ones that you're looking at.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I think we can wrap it up there. I just want to thank everyone again on the call for joining. I want to remind everyone we do have our showcase going on all day today. There's a chat feature so you can chat with the live Cetra expert. We have 3 more live webinars going on today. The continuous monitoring software, our SEM solution, that webinar is at 11 a.m. Eastern. I highly recommend attending that one. It's a great follow-up to what Michelle just went through. And Another exciting one is at 3 p.m. Eastern. Michelle will be joining us again for a webinar titled Helping Facilities Create Isolation Spaces During COVID. Folks on the call might know Cetra's products have been used heavily throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. This is a great, this will be a great webinar to attend if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that. And also see how we're going to continue as the pandemic continues, and even after the pandemic, how we're helping facilities create these safe spaces. So please make sure you join that one. Oops, sorry, I muted myself. I'm going to drop the link one more time in the chat. If you click on that link, you'll be able to get access to the showcase and also see and sign up for those additional webinars today. Thank you so much for your time today, Michelle, and we'll talk to you at 3 p.m.
Sounds good. Thanks everyone for joining.